Listen up, index fund disciples, you Costco-sized bag of passive income dreamers stuffed into a Vanguard tote. I know that you think you're diversified because your 401k robot bought you 500 tickers, but here is the secret. You are basically wagering your life savings on a tech fraternity with 7 members and a keg full of lithium-ion batteries. Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Tesla. Congratulations, you are a hostage in a Wi-Fi powered Stockholm Syndrome cult. Now the rest of the entire index is a zombie apocalypse that is staffed by mall zombies in khakis, shambling around balance sheets that are so bloated with debt they need Ozempic for corporations. You still think the S&P is safe because Jim Cramer screeched best barometer of capitalism? Guess what? Capitalism got a fentanyl problem called cheap money. The Fed printed cash like it was handing out Halloween candy. Every single zombie CEO leveraged up on zero-rate pixie dust, and now refinancing looks like a Saw sequel with spreadsheets. Your broad, safe exposure literally means owning companies that cannot cover their interest payments, which is basically buying a cruise line ticket on the Titanic after hearing that the iceberg special is half off. And the Magnificent Seven at the top grew so fat they are wearing the S&P like a crop top, sweating through the seams. Nvidia alone is the size of 231 ankle biter socks punching above their weight in the unemployment line. One AI hype cycle hiccup and your retirement plan flatlines harder than a Peloton treadmill at a Little Debbie factory. Oh, but you still think you're a genius because the line on the chart goes up, right? Well, guess what? Let me clue you in, you little rascal. That is not growth. That is what we call monetary obesity. The M2 money supply has exploded like a TikTok firecracker, so of course your index looks bigger in the mirror. You didn't get wealthy, the dollar got diabetic. You are sprinting on a hamster wheel that is greased by the money debasement while Bitcoiners are out back punching holes in the fiat matrix, stacking sats like they're dragon scales. And those dollar-denominated safe dividends, yeah, enjoy the 2% yields while the CPI scalps 6% of your purchasing power every single year. That is negative 4% in real terms, which is a slow motion mugging. Investing in the S&P 500 is what I call financial necrophilia. You're making love to a corpse that is called the middle class, and you are pretending that it is still warm. So yes, go ahead, keep dollar cost averaging into the coffin factory that is the S&P 500. Pat yourself on the back for buying the market and then brag at the office about your low fee exposure. The Bitcoiners are going to huddle around the digital campfire laughing as the halving sets the supply faucet from trickle to eyedropper, and we're going to be front running every single spasm of every single central bank in existence. We're playing chess on a hard capped board while you're playing Jenga with wet spaghetti. So the choice is obviously very simple. You can either ride the complacency carousel that is powered by zombie debt and liquidity sugar highs, or you can step off and grab the hard asset that doesn't negotiate with Jerome Powell's mood swings. One path is obviously early retirement on your own terms, and the other is reheated dog food financed by Social Security IOUs. Pick wisely. And once again, a very special thank you to Horizon for sponsoring this video. If you have home equity that is trapped in your rotting drywall, you can use Horizon to take the money and buy Bitcoin. And you do it without debt or more monthly payments or term limits. The Bitcoin is fully yours to custody however you want, wherever you want, with no risk of forced liquidation. They're linked down in the video description below, and I'll talk more about them at the end of the video. Do you remember when your financial advisor told you diversification is the only free lunch in finance? Well, guess what? He was an idiot. They served you a single moldy sandwich cut into 7 slices and called it a buffet. Yes, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, Google, Meta, Tesla, that is the entire entree. The other 493 stocks garnish the plate like wilted parsley, purely decorative, soon to be scraped into the trash along with the rest of corporate America's debt-soaked leftovers. So let's do the math that your index provider hopes that you never notice. The Magnificent Seven hog represents 37% of the entire S&P's market cap. That is like one family at Golden Corral eating the last steam table clean while grandma fights children for last year's yeast roll. Nvidia alone outweighs 231 of all of the companies. That's correct. One graphics card vendor in a data center mania equals an entire congressional district of zombie firms that are selling socks, soap, and subprime dreams. If you strip those 7 companies out, the headline rally keels over like a drunk at a frat party. The cap-weighted return falls by half, sometimes more. Equal weight version, well, basically jogging in place, struggling for breath while the mega caps zip by in private jets that are fueled by your index contributions. And yet the passive investing crowd will always continue to chant its holy mantra: low fees, broad exposure, set it and forget it. Well, here's what you're actually exposed to. You are exposed to regulatory risk on a scale that makes antitrust lawyers twitch. Also, supply chain fragility, one Taiwanese thunderstorm away from catastrophe, and market leadership that is so top heavy that one earnings miss can turn your retirement plan into a piñata at a liquidity crunch quinceañera. If you look at the understudies of the S&P 500, think the regional banks that nobody visits anymore, the department stores that are stuck in 1997, and the airlines that are one strike away from their 4th bankruptcy. They're all flailing in the background, begging for rate cuts like addicts begging for fentanyl patches. You own all of those companies too, by the way, because diversification. Congratulations, you are selling the winners to buy the losers. You are buying financial zombie insurance that you can't claim on. And this is the fun part. Every single time that the Mag 7 valuations levitate on AI hype or iPhone titanium upgrades, the index committee then rebalances and crams even more of that froth into your portfolio. They call it a self-cleaning oven. It is closer to a self-fattening hog that is headed for the slaughterhouse, each rebalance force-feeding you a larger slice of momentum at peak calories. So keep telling yourself that you have 500 independent bets, okay? In reality, you are all in on a Silicon Valley group project that is graded on a curve of central bank liquidity. One regulatory guillotine drop, one supply chain hiccup, one Elon tweet about Mars colony Dogecoin yields, and this house of cards pancakes your safe long-term plans faster than you can say, but my advisor said. Remember when diversification used to mean owning different businesses? Well, today it means letting tech royalty drag 400 plus corporate cadavers behind a performance parade float. Sure, enjoy the ride while the marching band is still playing. Just remember that you are tied to the bumper and not sitting on the throne. All right, disciples of the S&P 500, gather round. You all point to that tidy 16% headline gain this year and puff out your chests like you bench press PE ratios for sport. Strip away the steroid pumping mega caps and guess what's left of that. A limp 9.8% equal weight return, which is basically the financial equivalent of a Diet Coke at an all-you-can-drink bourbon tasting. The whole parade is dragged forward by 7 silicon-soaked Clydesdales that now haul 37% of the index's entire value, while 493 exhausted donkeys are tripping over their own debt covenants at the back. If any one of those tech titans coughs, your diversified portfolio catches avian flu, quarantines itself, and cancels Thanksgiving altogether. And I'll give you a quick history lesson for all of the goldfish in my audience. When leadership narrows to a handful of glamour stocks, Wall Street usually hands you a commemorative crash mug. Remember, in the year 2000, the NASDAQ lost 78% of its value faster than you can type pets.com into a Wayback Machine. In 1973, the Nifty 50 party ended with the S&P puking 45% while Polaroid face planted 90 plus. So the narrow breath didn't just ring a warning bell, it literally detonated an air raid siren. So you can enjoy your skinny jeans rally here while the band still plays, my dearest little captains. Just remember that when the music stops, there aren't 500 chairs, there are 7, and they're all reserved for the guys who wrote the index code. And everyone else gets to fight for the floor space in the bear market mosh pit, so choose your seats wisely, folks. Now, another quick reality check for all of the passive fund pilgrims out there. Your beloved broad market is hauling around a swamp of undead companies that can't even pay the the VIG on their own loans. The rough head count is about $2 trillion in liabilities tied to firms whose operating cash flow doesn't cover their interest. That's right, every quarter they borrow more money just to keep the lights on, like a dude maxing a third credit card to pay the minimums on the first two. These aren't quirky startups burning cash to build the next Tesla. These are 70-year-old industrial zombies wearing yesterday's earnings guidance as makeup. They shuffle through the bond markets just moaning, "Refinance me," while the private credit funds hand them fresh debt like IV espresso shots. And you own them because the index committee says so. Congratulations. Now zoom out to the Fed's rate cycle. For a decade, Wall Street survived on zero-rate happy juice. The corporate treasurers gorged on cheap paper and nobody asked questions, and that's just the way that it's been. Then InflationGate crashed the party. Suddenly, interest costs quadrupled and the refinancing wall in 2026 looks like a vertical cliff that is covered in butter. Just picture the zombie companies trying to scale it with greased bowling shoes. Every slip drags your index deeper into the grave. When one of these walking liabilities finally faceplants, just ask who eats the loss. It's not the private credit guys charging the double-digit yields because they are senior secured. It is you, the passive index investor, holding the common equity bag, cheering diversification while the equity gets wiped faster than a Twitter hot take deletion. So the next time your stupid, idiot financial advisor brags about the low-cost beta exposure, just remember that beta is a hearse loaded with corporate cadavers coasting downhill on a brake line that is made of Fed policy and total investor delusion. So when that slope steepens a little bit, those brakes are gonna snap, and the only question is whether you jump off before the crash or ride shotgun into the flaming ditch. Safe, predictable, and responsible. Yeah, sure, buddy. You're basically cuddling with zombies and calling it a retirement plan. Enjoy the hugs. I'm sure they smell terrific. And don't forget, this is what Dave Ramsey wants you to invest in, for the love of God. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the passive income congregation, let us talk about the giant pink money printer standing quietly in the corner while you just brag about your index gains. From January 2009 to September 2025, the M2 money supply ballooned from roughly $8 trillion to $22 trillion. That is a 168% expansion. That is injecting pure corn syrup into the bloodstream of the dollar. Now, your S&P chart looks amazing, but that's just because the measuring stick is melting in real time. Of course, the line zooms up. Every extra dollar that is sloshing through the system bids the equities higher like drunk gamblers at a charity auction. The Fed turns on the liquidity fire hose, Wall Street front runs the gush, and CNBC calls it healthy market appreciation while the confetti cannons just pop in the background. So if you strip away that optical illusion, you take that nominal 635% move in the index since 2009, you back out inflation, then back out the money supply bloat. Suddenly, that heroic gain looks like a dad bod in a funhouse mirror, all puffed up until you hand it a tape measure. So real purchasing power, guess what? It collapses to 1.9x, barely above the monetary expansion. So your gains are barely jogging ahead of the currency debasement it rides on. Congratulations, you have officially beat the treadmill by a single cheeseburger. And Bitcoin has run a completely different marathon in that exact same time frame. Fixed issuance, transparent schedule, zero bailout potential. No PhD with a dual mandate charter can wake up on a Sunday and decide to double the supply because some regional bank decided to sneeze. Fun fact for you, when Bitcoin's line goes vertical, it's not because some committee juiced the denominator, it is because global demand piled in against a mathematically scarce asset. So the next time your stupid, low-IQ, idiot financial advisor with some stupid degree or certification tells you that these returns are good, you need to toast the strong returns of Bitcoin against the destruction of the US dollar. Yeah, the S&P chart might say millionaire, yet the purchasing power feels closer to Chipotle burrito money. And the Bitcoiners are just watching this carnival from a distance, stacking sats like survivalists are storing canned beans. They're just laughing at every new $1 trillion that is conjured from thin air. So you can either hedge the money printer or keep betting your retirement on green numbers that evaporate the moments that you price them in steak dinner. dinners, car insurance, or a 3-bedroom house anywhere within commuting distance of a real job. Choose the hard cap, or you can choose the corn syrup dollar drip, but do not pretend that both paths lead to the same promised land. So while your S&P portfolio waddles along with the 14% 5-year CAGR, Bitcoin is busy clocking a high-octane 40+%, sometimes triple digits when the halving fireworks go off, okay? This is not a difference in performance. This is a difference in species, like comparing a Prius to a Falcon 9 rocket. If you just paint the asymmetry, look at this number right here. This is the 13-year cumulative return on investment. Even if Bitcoin nukes 80% in a bear cycle and you cry into your pillow, history tells you that it recovers in under 2.5 years and hunts fresh all-time highs like a bloodhound with a PhD in monetary economics. And then you see historically the S&P could crash 35, 50, maybe even 55, 60% higher in the dot-com crash, and then it spends a decade clawing back your purchasing power while Wall Street charges management fees for the privilege. And then look at the risk profile. Bitcoin is the least risky asset in existence because it has no earnings miss, no supply chain meltdown, no disgruntled union strike. Yes, the price can swing in USD, obviously, but the fundamentals stay welded to cryptographic math. The S&P, on the other hand, depends on zombies refinancing in a credit market that looks like Jenga with nitroglycerin blocks. So you decide you can hitch your future to a liquidity-addicted index praying for perpetual rate cuts, or board the scarcest digital asset ever invented, running on an incentive machine that pays miners to lock the doors behind them. One path leads to the slow boil of debased dollars and quarterly earnings regrets, and the other leads to asymmetric upside that is so lopsided it makes venture capital look like a savings bond. Ride the scarcity rocket of Bitcoin or stick to the zombie parade, you little goblins, but do not say that you were not warned by the Bitcoin wizard when Bitcoin writes the next chapter of financial history in blazing orange ink. All right, class, time to do some kindergarten geometry. We have two shapes, a bloated blue chip beach ball called the S&P 500 and a sleek tungsten cube called Bitcoin. Let us poke each with sharp sticks and see which one pops. Concentration risk, the S&P, a rickety Jenga tower, very high. One regulatory hammer and the whole thing scatters like Lego bricks at a daycare. Bitcoin, a single asset, no CEO, no earnings whisper, just algebra running worldwide. Try subpoenaing math. Monetary debasement sensitivity, obviously the S&P, high. We just broke it down. With Bitcoin, there is an inverse correlation because Bitcoin gets scarcer while the money printer fumes. Inflation hits Bitcoin like a water balloon bouncing off Kevlar. 5-year compound annual growth rate, S&P 500 14%, Bitcoin 48%. A 14% is nice if you are a tortoise with infinite patience in the face of a monetary death spiral, and then 48% is not even a growth rate, really. That is more of a spontaneous combustion of orange glory. The drawdown recovery speed, well, if the S&P falls off of a cliff, take therapy and a Zoloft prescription to climb back over multiple election cycles. With Bitcoin, yeah, it crashes, you cry for a few months, and then you find a new all-time high before you finish doom scrolling on Twitter. When you talk about the tail hedge payoff here with the S&P, when the world ends, you get a coupon and a participation trophy. With Bitcoin, if the fiat circus ignites, it rockets like a panic bid escape pod, dragging every single sat along for the ride. So what is the geometry lesson here when it comes to risk and reward? Well, one asset is a rectangle of slow returns that is stapled to the zombie dead out there, and the other is a convex hockey stick of asymmetric insanity. You can either chain your capital to the future of corporate promissory notes denominated in melting money, or hitch a ride on the scarcest digital commodity the planet has ever seen. So choose the beach ball if you enjoy watching air leak out in real time. Choose the tungsten cube of Bitcoin if you would rather own the anvil when gravity takes over. Decision time is right now. So just look around society, my dearest people. We have built civilization on 30-year mortgages, subscription boxes full of regret, and a fiat money printer that is huffing air duster in the back office. The average American finances dog grooming visits at 24% APR. They binge stream shows about royalty while their own credit scores in the 400s, and they still believe in Dave Ramsey's coupon clipping gospel like it's gonna save them from monetary judgment day. Well, guess what? The T1000 is right behind your head with a loaded gun. Yes, the snowball debt plan. Roll your pennies into a sphere, chant beans and rice like you're in a cult, and someday too, you can retire to a margarita timeshare where the dollar evaporates faster than a politician's campaign promise. Ramsey's goblins latch onto baby steps like toddlers to a blanket, stuffing cash envelopes as if cardboard rectangles hold value in a world where the Fed conjures billions before brunch, and these people call Bitcoin too risky, while cheering a 6% money market miracle that loses 8% to shadow inflation. If you are investing in the S&P 500, you are not living out a plan. This is slow motion self-immolation with a side of beans and rice. And all of those corporations that you are bankrolling through your investment, through this passive index worship, they are swapping human workers for AI chatbots that are hallucinating quarterly reports, borrowing at variable rates that they can no longer afford, then buying back the stock just to juice bonuses before the inevitable margin call that they'll face. Fun fact, you are their exit liquidity, the patsy at the poker table, the last buyer in a Ponzi of your own making. For the love of God, you people need to wake up. The fiat system is a consensual hallucination, a magic trick performed by central bankers with PhDs in creative writing. Every stimulus package that comes out just dilutes your savings like a bartender splashing tap water in top shelf whiskey. The S&P 500 is the casino floor of the entire thing. It is stuffed with the zombie corpse, staggering toward the next refinancing cliff while the Mag 7 run the VIP lounge upstairs. For the love of God, Bitcoin is standing outside of the rigged casino. It is hard capped, it is borderless, and it is immune to the bureaucratic whim. It does not care about who wins the next election, what the Fed says at Jackson Hole, or which social media app is president. It settles value in minutes, audits itself every 10 minutes, and has never missed payroll in 15 years. So choose between the two. You can keep feeding the index beast, follow Dave Ramsey's goblin math into a future where coffee costs $11 and your diversified nest egg just buys you a used Honda Civic. Or you can pivot to the hardest money ever forged by human code, ride the scarcity wave, and watch the fiat carnival burn from a safe distance. This is the end of my sermon, okay? The exits are marked with orange lights. Don't say the lifeboat didn't blow the whistle. My name is Adam Livingston. I am the Bitcoin Wizard. I hope you have a terrific day. Don't party too hard, but before you leave, send this to your friends and family so they can hear the orange gospel because they probably need it the most. Class dismissed.
Once again, a special thanks to Horizon for sponsoring this video. Most people don't realize this, but on average, 60% of American homeowners' net worth is locked up in their primary residence. And with home prices more inflated than ever, Americans now sit on a combined $35 trillion in home equity. Now there's a way to unlock that trapped capital and put it to work in Bitcoin. Horizon helps homeowners unlock a portion of their home equity to buy Bitcoin. It is not a loan, so there are no new monthly payments. You keep living in your home as usual, and then later when you sell, refinance, or choose to settle early, Horizon's provider takes an agreed share of your home's future value. That is the trade. Unlock cash now to stack Bitcoin by selling a slice of your home's future value while you continue living in it. What makes Horizon stand out is that there are no term limits and you keep 100% of the Bitcoin upside. The Bitcoin is fully yours to custody however you want, wherever you want, with no risk of forced liquidation. If you've been sitting on a pile of home equity and are eager to invest in Bitcoin, this may be the product for you. Visit joinhorizon.com to see if you qualify and get started. Their team of experts will work with you one-on-one from start to finish. Transform your dormant home equity into Bitcoin today with Horizon.